Okay, well, I have a question. You taught in class and you taught online. What are the major differences, or do you feel like they connect, or how does all that work?
I feel like it takes longer to connect online, but it's definitely possible. I've been amazed actually at some of the community feel and students caring about one another and missing each other and all that has happened online. It just has probably taken a little bit longer, you know, a few more classes to feel that way.
In her backyard.
And I guess I'm still more used to teaching I've been teaching in person for 6 or 7 years and online for 3 or 4 months. So I'm still feeling like teaching online requires me to be a little more creative. And the cabinets that I have full of books and cut up exercises, and, you know, it's hard. I used to, if I needed something in a pinch, I would go into my boxes and usually find something that worked. And now I, you know, have to create more lessons from scratch. I don't have as much of a library to pull from. So it takes a little bit more time really thinking about it. The other thing, I guess, is it seems, well, this is true in person too. It's really easy to make a really boring lesson. So, you know, I really need to think about, you know, use a bit of creativity and go back over other lessons that I've seen. We're going to figure out a way to have like a compendium of online lessons for it to help share ideas and times for teachers to get together. I know Beaverton Literacy, we're going to have at least monthly roundtables with teachers, probably in a given lesson or in a given level, something like that, for teachers to share ideas. We're going to have you know, work to put together some of those things just to help all of us get more experience faster.
In the fall, you're going to do that, or now?
The roundtables will start in September.
Hmm.
We're spending the summer putting systems in place.
Oh.
Yeah. Right, Leslie? Okay.
September, October.
September, October. All right.
I have one question or one comment or one request. That's what I really have, as a request. If we have time, if we don't, I understand. But it would be helpful. Someone said in the Monday class, oh, if I could just review all this, you know, when I'm really in the thick of teaching, you know, in a couple months from now. So it would be helpful for me as a learner, maybe in a breakout room, to say 3 things today that we've learned about Zoom that we didn't know before, and maybe 3 ways that we're thinking about how are we going to integrate how we do teaching in classroom to online. Some things that are just like forward in your mind, and I would love to hear everybody else's, to just cross-check with myself. Oh, did I remember that thing about whatever? So that's just, if we have time.
Yeah, thanks, Les. That's a great idea.
The 3 things thing.
We will have a lot of time today in breakout rooms. And that was, my goal was to have you guys share share your lesson ideas and share what you've learned and your thoughts and comments. And so that will be a perfect time to do that. There's a question Rinda asked about how long the links and the homework will work. A really long time. I don't. I have no plans to shut them down. Okay.
Yeah, I wondered, it gives you an option to save or just look at it. I can't remember the terminology, but to save it or to look at it where it is. And I wondered if there's an advantage. Should we save the things?
You're welcome to save them, make your own copies of them, edit, share, whatever you'd like, or you can continue to look at them online either way. Yeah, the only exception I can think of to the available forever is that first link from the first pre-work of that practice link. That's going away because I need that account for something else. But now everyone knows how to make their own account, and you can use your own link for practice.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so welcome again, graduation day, as someone pointed out. Whoops. Whoops. All right. So yes, we're recording this session again, and I will share the link to the recording with all of you, of course. On last session, we worked a lot with whiteboards and annotating the whiteboards and talked about the lesson progression again. Today, we're going to talk some about breakout rooms and then more about lesson planning. And I have more sample ideas to share with you. And then we're going to do kind of an extended breakout room for you guys to share with one another. Your lesson ideas as well as your learnings, and as Leslie suggested, the three big ideas for you. Okay? So breakout rooms, hopefully most of you got to watch my little screen recording with the details of the breakout rooms. And I decided after trying to explain how to do breakout rooms last time that it was much better to do that kind of recording, because it's not something that you can practice when we're here, because only the host can actually set up breakout rooms. But I'd like you to think about now, when you would use breakout rooms, you've had experience in them. Some of you have used them in your classroom, and we've used them quite a bit here. Whether and how you would use them and what factors you would consider. And if everyone can just take a minute and put a note in chat answering this question. What factors would you consider? When would you use breakout rooms and when would you not?
And put it in chat.
Put it in chat. Yeah, just put your comments in chat so we can all see them. Yeah, multi-level classes, no kidding. Monotony in your class? No way. Yeah. All right, so lots of great ideas. Right, with children. All right, so I'll just read through some of them. Practicing with conversation, multi-level class, breakout rooms by level. Really, that's when you would probably want to set your rooms up manually so you have the students of one level in one classroom. And it's great if you can have assistants in each class. That's can be optimal. In a large classroom to practice conversation, yes, like pair work in classrooms, right? We use tons of pair work in classrooms, and breakout rooms provide the ability to do that. Certainly more, you'd use them in bigger classes than smaller ones. Specific projects, you want to make really sure that your students have very clear instructions of what they should be doing when they're in the breakout room. Yeah, paired work. To break up the monotony of listening to me, yes. But of course, when we're in the big room, we're not doing all the talking anyway, right? Right, how much help do students need understanding instructions? That's a really good question. It's a really important thing to think about, to make sure they understand the questions before you go in. And that's going to depend, you have to get to know your students to know the answer to that one. Practicing greetings, yes. Practicing the questions and the materials with children. Yeah, I'm not sure I would put children into breakout rooms by themselves either. Mm-hmm. You want to have adults. That's a good place for volunteers to help. And yeah, considering the level. The teacher, right, the teacher can't observe what the small groups are doing. Any other comments that people want to make aloud? All right, so this is one of those things that it's cool technology, but we don't want to use it just for technology's sake. All right. So I'm going to go through now and just share a bunch of, these are not sort of lessons with a progression, the way the sample lessons were that I shared the last 3 sessions. These are more individual activity ideas that you can do at a variety of levels. So here, I'm going to move my share bar over. So here's one that we used this morning, actually. A couple people here will recognize this. This is a lesson where we practiced on sentence structure. And I took paragraphs from an article. This was a fairly advanced class, sort of upper, intermediate, and advanced, but you could do this at any level. You can take a text that you like, a story or whatever. This is from this article, 15 Surprising Things Productive People Do Differently. And then in groups, I had one paragraph. We read the paragraph together. We talked about pronunciation. We talked about the meaning of the individual words and of the sentences. And then I had pulled out a couple of sentence structures from each paragraph. Here, for this one, first I pulled out this sentence structure. I recently did that, blah, 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 including, and recreated it using different themes. I recently cooked a big meal, including burgers, potatoes, broccoli, and cake. I recently took a fun vacation, including, and I got students to fill in what that might have included. And then I opened it and made it less prescriptive and allowed them to create their sentence all by themselves. And each student created sentences. Here's another one that I pulled out of here. After analyzing all their responses, I did something. So I gave them a couple of sample sentences with this. We described what they meant, and then the students took turns constructing new sentences. So this is there's so many things, you can never explain all the grammar in the English language in constructing sentences. And sometimes it just helps to have those models that you can fall into. We had another paragraph and another sentence structure. And this is difficult because it's sort of like a double negative. There's nothing more valuable than, now do I want the things that are very valuable or not valuable? So we did a few of these. And this is, again, something you could do at every level. This is a fairly difficult text, but you could choose a much easier one, obviously, if your students are lower level. Any questions?
I have a question. Can you hear me? My headphones are having trouble today. You were soliciting responses from the whole class and then typing in on one Google Doc. Is that how you did this?
We did it. This is a fairly large class. We had about 20 students. So we had breakout rooms. We have 5 different teachers. And in each breakout room, we did exactly that. We solicited responses and I typed them. I think most of the teachers did it that way. Yeah.
Okay. Do you find that how students raise their hands, do they use the reaction buttons, or do you just look visually when you're?
I look visually. And in the breakout rooms, we only had maybe 4 students per breakout room. So we didn't even necessarily need to do that, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question on the breakout rooms. I had never heard of them before. And when I do the citizenship class via Zoom, I thought that was a great idea. But are you able to enter each break room and kind of see how the individual groups are doing? Are you able to do that? How do you do that?
If you go back, maybe you didn't have a chance to look at the screencast yet. If you go back and look at it, you'll see in there, once you set up the breakout rooms, when you click your breakout room button, you'll see next to each group, there's the option for the host to join. And you can just click the join button and then you're in one room, and then you can bring up the breakout menu again and click join on a different room to go switch to a different room.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so there's no way to eavesdrop. When you go in, they'll know that you're there, which is appropriate, right? But yeah, you can go visit. you can also have, teach your students about the question mark, right? Like you guys ask for help buttons so that they can call you into the room that they're in if they need you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Others? Okay. Let's go. So here's something else. I've talked a lot about wordless videos. I'm a big fan of wordless videos because there's such a good fodder for conversation. And there's no end of things. I forgot to click my little share computer audio button. Who said something about flawless before?
Me.
But there are all kinds of things that you can play. Let's see if this one really works. So this is a fun, it has no words. It has all these different pictures, right? This is the city that we live in, or the metro area that we live in. And you have control over that stop button anytime to talk about, okay, what do we see? And even with beginner learners, you can talk about colors. You can have the word mountain or building or tree, and more advanced learners can make sentences about it. So the sky's the limit really on the kinds of things that you can share. Questions about that one? All right, here's one that I really love. This is from a site called Jeopardy Labs, and it's in the presentation. It's literally Jeopardy, L-A-B as in boy, S.com. It's free. There are, I don't know, thousands or more of Jeopardy games set up there, and you can create your own from scratch, or you can use someone else's, or you can take someone else's and edit it and change it. So this is one that I created for a lower level class. We were working on pronouns, and we were working on have or has. And I would get them to, tell me this left or right for what, how many points. Someone always says dollars for $100. And the girl, is it he, she, it, or we? And there, I just click the space bar to get the answer. You can do this with teams also. It's a little trickier online. Your students have to remember who their teams are with. Usually, so far online, I've only done this as no teams and sort of collaborative effort. Have or has for 300, Bob and Tim, and you have to fill that in. And there's the sentence. So it's just a fun, again, something that you can do at every level, and you can create your own. I would just very highly suggest, if you use someone else's game, to check every single square and every single answer. Most of them, this was a small one, most of them have 25 squares, just like the real Jeopardy board. But you have people who have created these games who some may not be native speakers, or they may be from have a different version of English than you do. I personally change all of the have got. I have got something, and I take out the got. So just be careful about using someone else's without checking it. Questions? Okay. The next one I wanted to show you is sequence stories. And I might have alluded to this in another workshop, but I just Googled the term sequence stories, and this is what I got. And you'll get, the Three Little Pigs are on here too, and the Little Red Riding Hood. Whoops. Some of the links don't work out the way you think they will. But you'll get, I have another one up. Let's see. Okay, can you see Caitlin's flowers? Mm-hmm. This is one I just copied and pasted in here, and I had the students talk about what they see in each frame. And again, depending on the level of your students, you can have them create full sentences or bigger descriptions, or just use vocabulary words if that's more appropriate. And you could even, now, so this is a Word document, and I just pasted it into the Word document, and underneath I can write, I would make my text really big, and you can write the girl as students talk, you know, create sentences that way. You could also, if you're good about cropping images, you can crop this so that each image is a separate box, and then move them around when students put them in the right order. Done lots of that too. Questions? Okay, let's say goodbye to Caitlin. All right, so some of you may have looked at my website. I referred to this the other day, and I just wanted to show you something in particular is on it in the beginner tab. So the URL for my website is on the homework docs. If you go to the beginner tab, there are a bunch of readers, e-readers for low-level learners. There's some really great stuff here. I mean, these are stories for the most part that are written for adults whose English is just low level, as opposed to children's books about talking dogs. And well, there are probably some talking dogs in here, but these are more themes, you know, going to the doctor, getting ready for school. There's one that our colleague Tim Krause right here in Portland wrote, Portland People and Places. This one is a little bit higher level, the student 7 Wonders of Oregon. And what I will usually do with these, this is the website, the open resources website where Tim's story is. And you can see it's pretty simple, but you can highlight by clicking on things, but you can't write on it. And I use this story with a lot of stories with this student that I mentioned earlier who has really, really bad vision problems. There's no way she would be able to see this. So what I started doing is I would take just literally highlighting everything on the page, copying and pasting it into, it can be a Google Doc, it can be a Microsoft Word, any application that you're comfortable with. And I made the text nice and big, and we read it together, and then we started asking questions, and someone asked, how do you say novio, the boyfriend? So we talked about boyfriends and girlfriends. And sorry, I'm going to scroll fast. I know that can be hard in her eyes. Then I had created these questions because we were learning about what, and I could type in the answers, and we could type in different phrases, different sentences as they said them. Another idea, Tim's book has these multiple choice exercises, so I just copied and pasted them into my document so we could do these. And then, you know, we got into talking about sisters and brothers somehow. Just, you know, doing it in a document. This was an advantage of doing it in a document in a Microsoft Word or Google Doc instead of slides or PowerPoint, is that we could just keep going on and on. This seemed like an important bit of vocabulary, I suppose, at the time. And then we used the pictures and we made our own story. So I wrote, her name is, and we just picked someone from the class's name. And the students really wanted them to be married. So anyway, yes, she got pregnant really fast.
Oh, no wonder she wanted to be married.
Right. So it just shows some things that are, you know, pretty easy to do with a little bit of creativity. This is what I was referring to before, that it's really easy to create kind of a boring, I don't want to overuse that word, but we could have read that story online and we could have talked about it, but it was so much more interesting by copying it into my own document so that I could edit it and students could participate in the creation. Questions or other comments or ideas?
Then would you repeat where to find that document or website, and then what you called it. I mean, what you called that website where you had it.
Oh my gosh, there's a giant dinosaur behind me. Sorry. The website where with all the different names of the different books.
Yeah. Yes.
That is a website that I created, and it's in the homework documents. It's linked in there, but I also just put the link in the chat box.
Oh, okay. That would be great.
Yeah. Other questions? Okay. So what I'd like to do now, great, we have a lot of time. I'm going to create breakout rooms, and in your breakout rooms, let's see how the math works out. We'll have 3 to 4 people in the room, and I'd like you to share the lessons that you created or thought about, right? Taking a lesson that you used to do and thinking how you would do that online. Or maybe it's something that you never did, but still an online lesson idea. And talk about, as Leslie suggested, 3 big takeaways that you're having from this training, because things that will pop out to you may not pop out to somebody else, but they'll still be very valuable for that person. I will join different rooms, come in and say hello and see what you guys are up to, but also feel free to click the question mark button. Yeah, Kathleen? Whoops, I can't hear you.
I didn't write them down, so that would be helpful.
Sorry, say that again. We missed the first part.
Could you repeat the 3 items that we share in the breakout room?
Your lesson plan ideas. Sorry, your lesson plan ideas. And your 2 things, your lesson plan ideas and your big takeaways, your 3 biggest takeaways from or learnings from this workshop. I suppose it doesn't have to be 3, it can be 2 or 4. Okay?
Okay, yeah, thank you.
And press the help button if you need me, otherwise I will just wander between classes. And here we go. I wanted to share with you something that Amy has put together for her class, and that is Boom. It's Boom Learning. The website is boomlearning.com. And here she has
spacing is bad.
creating this, right, the spacing. Well, I usually have my screen, my vision is not so great itself. Oh well. But here you can actually move the
Oh, nice.
and submit. Yay, and then it gives you the next one. So, and
Very cool.
I love that positive reinforcement.
Nice. The other nice thing about the boom cards, in particular for language teachers, is you can include audio clips. So I can have them listen to something and then click on which word they heard.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Or listen to something and click on which picture it matches.
Was that on Google Docs, or how did you do that?
It's a separate application called Boom Cards, and you can get a free account to set up 5 decks of cards that don't include sound. But for $35 a year, you can get their primo subscription that includes unlimited decks and sound.
What was the name of it?
Boom Cards.
BOOM.
BOOM.
I just shared the URL on chat.
Thank you.
In the chat window.
Great.
So can the students, can you do it so the students can manipulate those words and put them in the boxes? Or do you have to send them the link?
Yeah, I send out a link. I use it as homework. So I
Okay.
send out the link and the students do it on their own. With a paid account, you can actually assign it to students and then track their progress on it, which I haven't done yet. I've just done the use it if you want approach.
Is
Yeah,
that for the $35 a year? Does that include that?
Yes, there's actually a middle one that also includes it, but it didn't include sound. And for me, the sound was critical. So that's why I did the $35 one.
What you saw me doing was what the student would see. I was using the link that Amy sent to her students, and I was able to do it on my phone also. So if you have students who don't have a computer, it's just, they can use it, do it on their phone. It's so this is one of several different kinds of sites. ESL Library is another one where you can make student accounts and assign work to students and have students, and then you can track their progress. You can see whether they're doing it or not and how they did and how many mistakes they did. And I have to tell you that it sounds great, but I spent more time with a class of 3 level 2 students helping them with their account, and it was simple, and I had done screenshots and we walked through it together, and someone couldn't remember their password and someone else couldn't remember their username, and you know, anytime students have to use accounts, you just be warned. I don't have to tell you, I'm sure you know, many of you have had that experience. You just have to decide what the payoff is going to be versus if they have this kind of opportunity to do it just, you know, unmonitored. Other questions or ideas?
Now, one question that I have is, are there sites that are out there that you would recommend for students to do self-learning in between sessions with you?
Well, there are a lot of self-learning kinds of applications like Duolingo or Babbel or LingQ or Lingvist. Believe me, I'm learning a bunch of different languages. I've tried a lot of them. And the question is, if students want to do more and more on their own, great. You know, the more time spent with English, the better. If you can, in addition, or at least for starters, give them homework that's related to what you taught them in class, all that much better, right? So if you can create something like this Jeopardy Labs, we did it in class, but then I sent them the link. They could practice it on their own. And the answers were right in there. And I didn't, you know, we had already used it in class. Or if you use Google Slides or Google Docs, you can share that with them so they can review it on their own. You want to get them to have as much repetition as possible. And if the homework is not directly connected to your lesson, then the synergy is, you're not going to be able to take advantage of that. Other questions or comments, thoughts, ideas?
I have a question. Our program has been a drop-in program. Students come when they can. And I don't know how you could set that up with Zoom because you aren't sure who's even going to show up.
Yeah, if you have, when Beaverton Literacy first started teaching online in the beginning of April, we put the links to our classes on our website because we had no idea who was going to show up, and we wanted it to be drop-in and we wanted it to be as low barrier as possible.
Okay.
That was before, you could still do it. Now the links require passwords. They're super long. I was a little bit nervous about doing that. So, you know, if you're with the library and you have tons of people getting on the library site, you know, there's a little bit of
in a church, and I suppose it could be put on the church website.
It can be put on the church website. You know, one more to make it a little bit more controlled, you could have an email address on the church website that said, if you want to come to class, and then someone has to email you and then you send them the link.
Right. Yeah.
It does make me just a little bit nervous to have the links just out there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'd check with what the church wants.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You can also, Zoom, Zoom has a way for people to sign up, but again, it's for a specific class, so that wouldn't necessarily help you. Other questions, thoughts, ideas? Big takeaways. Yeah, Leslie.
Sorry, I have one. It occurred to me as as this teaching online is really starting to focus a lot on having a Google Doc or some kind of page that you're sharing on the screen, and you as the host or the teacher are typing in. So you've got this record of what's going on in the class. And there's different ways to save that and share that with your students. But one thing that I have done since before being an online teacher is always had a class log in Google, on a Google Doc in my Google Drive that I share with the students every week. They have the link, they can always access it if they want to, but it's a record of what we do in class, and it includes the links to anything we did, YouTube videos, homework, sublinks, and things like that. And it's just this one place where all students can go back to. And I think now students should have their own, if the upper levels could have their own personal class log. So if they're having to type something up and then share it in their breakout room, that's a place for them to have that. It's just an organizational thing, but it's since we live in this digital world and there's so many files and so many places to store stuff and so many different clouds we have, having one place and one file is helpful.
And there are some, thanks for that. There are some services, and I'll try to remember to put one in the post-class document, that are designed specifically for that, to bring all your links together. But it's probably, it may be just as easy to create a shared document, a Google Doc or something like that, and put all of your links in there rather than learning yet another tool.
Like another platform, like a student management kind of system. Yeah, okay.
Right, yeah. All right, great. We are out of time. Thank you so much for being on this journey with me. Feel free to send me questions. I will send you guys one more email with the document that has all the links. It will have the recording, a link to the recording of this session, and some other tools in there.
Thanks, Linda.
Thank you, Linda.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.